welcome back to the Paladins Pro Circuit. We just got through wrapping up Brazil, and we are now moving on to North America. Fitch and Goremizer here in Gore. But I feel like things are getting all turned upside down, at least in my little world. I mean, we saw the Vivian Victor Anara draft get crushed earlier. I feel like we know nothing. And moving into North America here with Sanguine going to be taking on Prolific. Perhaps we'll be moving into yet another scenario in which we know nothing.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where Sanguine, half the time you expect to see them up at the very top. And unfortunately for them, they just haven't been able to make that climb just yet. I mean, 1-1, it's not the end of the world. And
Sure.
they're tied there with Team Prolific. But the thing is Team Prolific is this squad that has been taking down Sanguine in some of these community tournaments around that they've been competing in. So knowing that Sanguine are there, knowing that they have been at the top and we're able to get first place in North America overall and first place technically in the world over the summer there, it maybe is a little eye-opening to see a little bit of a rough start here.
I think it is. You're right to kind of point out that it's a bit surprising that Sanguine are at this point in the standings, as it looks like we'll be moving into Splitstone Quarry as that first map. With no particularly, I don't think, surprising bands. Maybe Jack Falls, one we see sometimes make it through, but otherwise being taken out of here. And Gore, I mean, there's a lot of reasons I think Sanguine could be at that 1-1, and maybe we'd expect them to look a little bit better. I just think the rest of these teams are that good right now. Everyone is showing up to play here in North America, so there are no easy sets.
Yeah, I think there's a huge portion of this where Sanguine last time, I mean, you maybe had 2-3 different teams that you were trying to take down and deal with for the most part, but they've had not even an easy time of it. They were just able to do it consistently overall. Now, again, like you said, a lot of these teams, especially with the smattering of players that are joining across these teams, there's just so much history among every single one of them coming together here for Phase 2 that I think it gives a lot of weight. And I think Team Prolific, I mean, there's one to keep your eye on. Again, a lot of players that have been in I want to say just in good areas. I mean, Penguin, Ball, and Barry have always been in that scene where you would see them sometimes with success, sometimes with not, and being able to find that was always fun. I think going up against Sanguine here is a good chance to prove themselves and maybe show that not all things in 2020 are dark for everybody.
Yeah, let's hope that someone, there is some light
Someone's
out
out
there somewhere.
there.
Yeah, Splitstone right now, we got both snipers taken off the map, and I don't think that's too surprising. Strix can a lot of the times dominate here on Splitstone, so he and Kanessa both removed alongside Vivian and Zen. That does mean, obviously, Genos and Corvus both still out there. That does mean that Androxus, whose mobility is hard to match on this map, is also out there. That's exactly what Prolific will take first overall. But if you're Sanguine, I don't think you feel too bad taking Corvus and maybe an Anara here, right? I mean, with your first two bans or picks, that wouldn't look too bad.
70% win rate for Corvus, a 65% win rate there for Anara. It's kind of hard to argue with the numbers. But I'm still a little surprised to see him picked over Genos. I think it's kind of flavor of the month and which one you want more than the other. They're both going to be very potent. But again, I just have trouble when I see Andro Victor Finch. I said this earlier. I just have trouble arguing against them. And I think that's something that Prolific are going to be able to showcase here as to why. But I think Corvus can be a really good control factor along with Anara. I think there's a lot of team fight potential around Sanguine. But when it comes to one-on-ones, Andro can get in your face and take you down. Victor, he doesn't have to get in your face, but he can if he wants to, and he's still going to be able to take you down. Now with a Luminary boost, it does shake it up, and I just have trouble thinking Sanguine are going to have an easy time dealing with this.
Well, interesting that Sanguine would elect to take this con. I feel like we were just saying earlier today, Gore, that we don't see enough con, at least how we felt it, yet here it is getting locked in for Sanguine. Should give them, you would imagine, some decent control, a little bit of extra bit of sustain for the squad, and then obviously some decent damage as well. Pair that with the casting, and how do you like these first 4 picks here for Sanguine?
I'm excited for them, but I don't know if I'd place my money on them. If I were able to bet, and I guess if we're willing to bet, because I personally like keeping my money where it is as opposed to gambling on anything. I just don't know if I'm leaning towards Khan Cassie. I think Khan is an interesting pick on this map. I think he has a lot of prowess. And when he's up against things like Fernando, he shines even better, so that actually blows me away more than the Khan is picking the guy that is countered by Khan into him. So maybe a little slip up there for Prolific. Maybe because of that reduced cooldown on the shield, they're not as worried about it. But Bomb King, Victor, and Droxus, I think all 3 of those just kind of outweigh everything Sanguine have right now. Then it comes down to execution and playstyle. I don't know. I'm still leaning towards Prolific. That just looks like a really, really stellar Stone Keep draft.
Yeah, I wonder if this Cassie and Leon are going to be able to do enough to sort of keep this Andro in check here, Gore, because, I mean, I feel like that could be one of the big difference makers here is how well is his Androxus going to be able to sort of use that verticality to get back there, take out this Corvus, and then potentially either break up one of this Cassie or Leon, whoever he's looking at here so far. But it sounds like, to me, you're leaning a bit towards Prolific here at this point. Which I guess in the standings that makes sense, but I am a little surprised.
It's hard to tell just because Sanguine, if we're getting end of Phase 1 Sanguine, then I don't think anything is going to matter when it comes down to draft. It's just going to be get in game, watch Sanguine win, and then go ahead and get out there. What I like, though, is that right now it's definitely a different style of play than what they were bringing through most of Phase 1. It feels like they are, evolving as things go. We'll just have to see if it's going to help them out here in Stone Keep because Prolific really do have a draft that maybe except for the Fernando, I think anybody on a top team would love to lock in.
Certainly would. Team Prolific with the triple DPS, the Victor Bomb King, and the Androxus solo take Fernando will be taken on Sanguine with the Khan Inara combo amplified by that Corvus. And I think, Gore, that we should be in for an interesting one to see how they end up trying to decide, who controls that high ground. Will they be having a lot of battles, over near lava? Will it instead be happening, more down near the point? I mean, this could be certainly an exciting one to start us off with here in North America.
Yeah, and I was wrong. I was thinking Stone Keep. Split Stone. Different stones, same kind of principles, I think, are all around it. Still leaning towards Prolific, if I'm being honest with you. But I think it's, again, it's going to come down to their execution and how they're able to make it work. I think that does open up things for Gogurt more on this Khan to try and find easier counters onto that Fernando and pick his shield. The problem is you pick Fernando, who's countered by Khan, but you also got Bomb King, who counters Khan. So there's this weird triangle, I think, that's going to be going on here. And Sanguine are going to have to figure out how to deal with that, because if Gogurt can't get good picks onto Fernando, I don't know if things are going to go their way.
Well, Penguin opens things up. Poison answers back and immediately is responded to by the Fernando. So Team Prolific controlling the mid, starting to rack up a little bit of the percent they gave over to Sanguine early on. And we saw it. It looks like the Sanguine tanks are kind of struggling a little bit, recoiling under all this pressure from Team Prolific already. Wouldn't be surprised if this Bomb King continues to be a thorn in their side as Ratatouille on this Victor controls that top side, won't let the Leon out. And look at this score, I'm telling you, Quick does not seem to have an answer. Worth noting, this is not Wadu, who I would have expected being here for Sanguine, but seems as though he is getting shredded anytime he or the Khan try and step out.
Yeah, Quick used to be a coach for Big Egos, and he's filling in for Wadu, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you, those are big shoes to fill when it comes down to it. You can kind of tell, 99 to 33, I think this is a really good clapback from Sanguine, a good couple of kills coming out between Poison and Cool. But it is something that's difficult, as one of the things Sanguine are really good at are running this triple DPS around Wadu. Not having Wadu, who is kind of the core of making that work, maybe slows that down. Maybe is why we're seeing Gogurt still playing more of a flank, but it's still Khan, so he's that off-tank style.
Quick gonna have a lot to deal with as Acosta taking out the accursed arm. That does bring Quick down low, but great work by Poison maneuvering in to take care of the Androxus. And Sanguine are the ones still in control at the midpoint. Cool getting aggressive, using the ultimate with some help from Gogurt to take care of Ratatouille, and it's the Fernando dropping as well. Prolific seem to be in complete control to me, Gore, but Sanguine make one surge, retake, and suddenly they're up 1-0.
Last year, Sanguine are playing a draft that, again, just within the last year would be dominant throughout the league, and I think we'd see that. And I feel like they're showcasing why these champions, even though some of them aren't in the same place they were, are still pretty good. I think the Khan is maybe going to suffer the most out of all this, but Leon and Cassie, it's almost been surprising to me to see them not picked up as much. They've kind of disappeared from the radar. Everybody, talking about Vivian and Victor. Androxus has pushed his way up there. I still think there's a place for Eevee, although maybe not between these two teams, specifically Sanguine, because they like to run console, and she's a little bit better for your keyboard and mouse players. But I really do think that these two have a place in it, and if you get plays like what Cool just executed, kind of showcases exactly why Leon is still solid, and I think Cassie is going to be able to fit up right beside her.
Well, if they just illustrate exactly why Leon and Cassie are strong, then Prolific is putting on display exactly why Splitstone can at times be tough. Starting to stall out a bit here are Sanguine. Poison has made his way to the backline though, but Penguin has the answer. Working together with Gogurt though, they take care of the Bomb King. Perhaps that can push them through, but Yado doing too good of a job on this. Androxus gets to cool and takes care of him, really leaving a lot of the damage up to the Cassie. Good work from Gogurt trying to draw some attention, but Ball and Barry and Yado able to take care of him easily. So Sanguine continue to slow down here, Gore, having a hard time getting around this corner as Yado just putting shots into Quick, who has struggled when he gets isolated out in front of this Androxus. There is no answer.
It's this really weird push and pull where with Sanguine's picks, again, even though I think this draft is going to be solid as a team,
yeah,
at the end of the day, I think they just have to put more work into being good with these picks than what we're going to have to see out of Prolific, is the easiest way to describe it. I think to make this Cassie Con Leon work, you're going to have to put more effort into it. And when they put that effort in, or when the stars align for them is really what I should say, then yeah, it's real easy to make them come in and look good. But the other X amount of times that you're going to go in and be reminded that it's still a Victor, Bomb King, Andro with a Genos behind them, I think is going to rise up. So the ceiling is high, but the question of how often you can hit that ceiling for Sanguine is where I'm starting to question it.
We certainly saw just now they were struggling to hit it, Gore. A really solid defense there from Prolific. And when you pair that with the fact that the mid-fight seemed to be going their way initially, I wouldn't be surprised if Prolific are feeling pretty good about their chances right now. Obviously hard to keep up with the healing baller. Steve is going to be outputting for Sanguine here at this point, plus got the 2 tanks to dump it onto. But still, I think Team Prolific, if they can make sure they get this mid-fight locked down, should be feeling solid.
Yeah, I think that's where they can move in. And again, with double tank, at least in my eyes, it's something that Sanguine can maybe control a little better than Prolific, but I think Prolific can maybe, again, cause that to fall on itself, maybe use their own sword against them, where you know where Gogurt's going to be going. You can send Bomb King to counter that. It's going to cause him trouble. Once this Khan is gone, all of a sudden your Fernando gets a little bit better, and you can force that Inara to play awkwardly.
There's the King Bomb. That's why all of Sanguine are positioned so far back. But this ultimate coming out from Steve is pretty nasty. Yado is the one that gets caught in it cool. Or rather, Cool's the one that falls from it. So Sanguine can't make that one work for them in the end after all. Team Prolific still managed to hold on to the mid-control, though. Way in the back, Ball and Barry keeping them healed. And this is what we've noticed from Sanguine. They're playing this relatively slow. They want to make sure they have everyone when they step out, but still they're losing members. Yado takes care of Poison yet again. Now he goes up top. Recognizes the Khan up there, so elects to come back, but still, they're holding on to this percent, they're holding on to this position. Finally, the Inara Quick has made his way back out and will slowly amble onto the point, but this is exactly what Prolific have been waiting on. They've been able to dump the damage into these tanks quite nicely when they land. They will fall back for now, though. Give up a little bit of control from mid, not quite contesting, but Yado goes up to the sky. I think they've got Poison isolated over here to the left, but Cool provides some backup, and Ratatouille is the one that ends up falling first.
It hasn't happened yet, but I feel a Ball and Barry snipe coming on. I'm kind of surprised that this ult hasn't come through just yet. And he's going to hold on to it for a little bit longer. No need to get a lot of kills now when you don't have any follow-up. They have to work fast. I mean, 75 to 75, unfortunately just off the mark there as well, so they're not even going to be able to get that opening. They have to move fast.
They really need to do Team Prolific, but they're not even going to be able to find a touch, an aggressive zone. Gogurt, I think, the front man on that, the furthest forward, keeps them back. And it's Sanguine the ones that find the mid-fight, completely contrary to how that last one went, where it looks like Team Prolific were in control for the most of it. Sanguine, when they are all grouped up and ready to make a push, Prolific can't seem to answer it, and the Fernando gets pushed back way too far.
Overpower is available for the Khan, so if Prolific maybe get too aggressive here, that's a free execute into the drill if he so does decide to grab you. Or he can just pull you back now and try to regain some of this ground. I'm kind of surprised to see Sanguine take this as passive as they want. I guess they all need to heal up, so they are going to back off. But this almost gives too much ground over to Prolific. I mean, it's like a mid-fight that you're losing now if you're Sanguine. And that's an unfortunate scenario. Splitstone, here I go doing it again, is one where you need a little bit of time, and if they're willing to throw out a King Bomb this early on, yeah, not only is it going to recharge, but they're in a position to just control the pace of the game. But that payload's inching forward. Maybe they're not paying enough attention.
Maybe not. Cool and quick, able to find some kills. And look at Gogurt chilling on the actual cart. It is continuing to roll forward. So even though Quick was near the back of the fight, being locked down by that Bomb King, able to eventually move beyond it, we're all of Sanguine. Now they've got this cart rolling to about the halfway mark, moving up through mines, getting them off those mounts, and maybe doing more as Yado almost ends up falling entirely into the afterlife. Does live though, so he is not taken care of just yet. But still, Sanguine have turned this from an aggressive zone into a really aggressive push. They've making good time, honestly.
It's not often you get to see a Khan get poppy bombed by a Bomb King, and he's kind of happy about it. They will trade 1 for 1 there, and I think that actually ends up coming out. It's always Defender's advantage. You're going to have Prolific respawning. Penguin going to be back in the fight before Gogurt will be. But I love little trades like that just because I think it's showing that you can take advantage of, one, your defense, but also your matchup. Know that you're going to be able to beat this Khan and show no fear. Run into him. Hold W. And we'll see what you can do, Penguin, which so far it's been pretty solid as Bomb King. Again, maybe a little bit of misprioritization around some of the fights, but nothing that's really been a glaring issue. Right now, though, they need to step up a little bit. The Inara has been live for way too long, and this payload's getting uncomfortably close.
Well, they do eventually take care of that Inara problem. Yado has the ultimate, so if Prolific actually have 4, if they feel the need, they've got a couple, but Penguin able to get a couple kills with that, and Yado takes care of Baller, and that should be it. Prolific find the successful defense, and it's felt as though Yado even getting another one after time. This has felt like we've seen Cool and Poison kind of try to go a little bit further ahead, especially Cool on this Leon, ahead of the rest of the squad to see if we can find some picks kind of from the back of the fight. But Team Prolific seem to have the good answers. At the very least right now, their defense is looking solid. They just got to make sure they work out what to do in this mid fight.
Yeah, there's not anybody I see on Sanguine that I'm designating to like flank duty and seeing them come away super successful. I think Cool and Poison can definitely do it, as well as Gogurt. But it's doing it consistently that's going to be the issue, and I think that's something that Prolific have a little more. I mean, Yado just showcased a great example of Androxus.
Yeah.
It was really just tracing where Baller Steve was running away to, but honestly, it looked impressive, so I'm always going to be in awe of it. But it's these plays around bleachers that I think are going to just cause so much trouble.
These King Bombs have been a problem, but a good answer this time from Gogurt. It looks like he barely got hit, but he's low now. Cool has dropped elsewhere. Poison's been caught by the Void Grip, and he falls too. Prolific yet again get out to an early lead in this mid-fight, but we have seen this time and time again go back the way of Sanguine afterwards. Gogurt does get the kill in the auto in response, but this looks like such a dominant position, and there's a big shot from Ball and Barry using the ultimate to take care of Gogurt, but Cool has the answer in response. Penguin ends up getting traded. They do have to move. The barrage not there in time for Ratatouille, and just like always, Sanguine make a big push to retake.
And just like every other time, I'm worried about Prolific's ability to get back in. They do have a lot of time. 93 to now 42 means they should be able to get back. And notice Sanguine aren't anywhere near as aggressive in their zoning for this mid-fight as they have been the last two.
Yeah.
But I think displacing them, I mean, double tank is just already hard to get rid of. I think it's going to be difficult. You have to kill Gogurt, then Quick, in quick succession, to make sure you can take this back.
Sakara did make it to come through and has found a touch. Cool gets the kill onto Penguin as well to take him down on the back of the fight as well. So Sanguine trying desperately to hold on, but it's Prolific that have been able to take this into overtime. Now Sanguine get back up to 99% as well, so the overtime starting to tick the other way. Yado having to dash back out of there, but Ratatouille and the Androxus got kills. It's really just Gogurt trying to stay onto the point, getting healed up by Baller Steve is doing his best, but it's hard for him to outdo all of that. Prolific get their first mid-win. It couldn't have come at a better time. I suppose when they already had 3 would have been nice, but now they can get into a pretty good offense.
And it's in that awkward moment where it's just like, you know, you need to kill these tanks fast, or do what they did, which is kill the DPS, then deal with the tanks. They're not going to do much on their own there, and I think that was good control to be able to get into the backline and cause that much just distress for Sanguine. And again, it goes into their draft. Their draft just is better at being able to get back there, control the front line, and stop them from protecting those backline carries. But also, it's just good at diving. I mean, Androxus is going to be able to get back there consistently and cause a lot of trouble. Now you've got the King Bomb, you've got a snipe once again from Ball and Barry. Andro has the accursed arm soon enough, and there it is. The Immortal is now online for Fernando. That's a lot to get a payload converted. I'm kind of surprised to see them put this much presence into killing off a Leon.
Oh, interesting. Cool. I think who felt right went for the ultimate. Poison gets the double. Penguin and Ballin do both end up falling. A ton of time left in this round, though. So even with this critical defense coming through for Sanguine, if you're Team Prolific, especially after getting that ultimate out from Cool, I mean, I doubt you're feeling too bad about your chances. You still have the Accursed Arm, the King Bomb, the Barrage, and as you mentioned, the Immortal all in the back pocket to try and make a push with. And it'd be worth using the cash here in this moment. It's for the win if they can get this conversion core.
It's all about just aggressing into this the right way. Barrage, especially around that corner, is going to clear this payload off.
So much damage.
Then you're going to have to fight into respawns. You just have to worry so much about how you drop this ult and how to use it. They also have 45 seconds, Finch. There's a little bit of breathing room. I feel like my pace makes me feel like if they don't get it now, they lose the game. But really, they can take it slow. They don't have to drop the ults. They don't need to. They can save those for this last corner.
Quick trying to buy some time. Does so, but does eventually end up costing him his life, I believe, as expected. This is where those ultimates could come up huge, though. As you're rounding this last corner, Barrage can be a brutal tool at times. But there is the ultimate coming out from Gogurt. Huge to pull in Yado, and Cool is the one that gets the kill to close it out on the backside. So now, desperately, they need their Androx to catch back up with them. They'll have overtime. Obviously, they've got the cart right there with them to try and push around this next corner, but that should delay this push from happening. Quick, though, gets pushed off his position by Penguin. Follow-up is there, but not anything worth getting too overexcited about. But they end up losing to Fernando, and that really might be the end of this push all there at once. Without him, no chance is going to happen. Sanguine get the defense, but at least Prolific have all those ultimates coming into this mid-fight.
Is that question of what do you want to commit versus what do you think you're going to get out of it. And they didn't want to commit anything, so they didn't really get anything out of it either. Not only no conversion, but no big ults used from Sanguine, save for the overpower. That being offline is actually a really big deal for the beginning of a 3-3 point fight. That is usually a guaranteed kill, especially with a huge map hazard right next to you. I mean, you just pick and choose. Whoever you can grab, anybody, at least in my mind, on Prolific is going to be worthy of dying to that ult. So Gogurt not having that may be an advantage for Prolific to try and take on now. But soon enough, Cool's going to have his shot ready. 1,600 damage with a pretty wide hitbox that we've seen connect around corners here already in this map, I think is going to cause some trouble for Prolific, unless they can find some good starter ults. I don't want to see them be patient with it. I think Prolific need to use their advantage while they have it, because otherwise Gogurt, he's going to hit 100 faster than you think.
Gogurt is starting to rack it up already, making it to 50. Opening to the right, Yado is quite low, but was able to elude danger for now. Gogurt getting topped off. Quick is the one that's actually out there on the point, being pushed out by the Fernando. So Prolific maintained control of the midpoint for now, but remember, Sanguine had been way more into the retake than holding it from the beginning, and Cool takes a ton of damage. Yado and Ratatouille work together to shut him down, and now Poison could be in some trouble as well, but Yado can't find the shots. Ratatouille is the one that runs in for him, and that's both the damage dealers for Sanguine removed, so Prolific should be able to hold their control. And yes, the tanks have to fall back, obviously Baller Steve, but Gogurt and Quick as well, and their time quickly starting to run out here at this point. Gore, they're going to have to send someone back out. Quick will be the one that moves out first. Gogurt has moved in as well near the bleacher side. Penguin ends up falling for it, but Sin Cara is right back on his way back out. But there's the ult from Cool. He wants to take care of Ratatouille, but it's Ratatouille that gets the better of him and shuts him down before answered by Gogurt. 99% on the board for Prolific, but Sanguine appear to have reclaimed control.
Barrage still available, but with Victor offline for a little bit longer, this is the best time for Sanguine to get some of that percentage, tie the game back up. And once again, looking at ults, Corvus is about to have his 88%. 83 for the Scout from Cassie, which doesn't sound like much, but CC immunity for her is going to be good if she wants to fight in the Bomb King. And also just vision, knowing where to aim a little bit faster is going to always be helpful.
Well, there's that Barrage you asked about. Takes care of Baller Steve. Aid puts some damage into Quick. Gets some help from Yado to come out and takes care of that one. Penguin gets a kill on the Poison as well. And suddenly Prolific looking pretty damn good to me as they take care of Sanguine. Open this point right back up, forcing Cool to step in. But what can he do on his own? Prolific are the ones that take care of Splitstone Corey and come out 1-0.
And it takes them a long time to get there. I think Sanguine put up a really solid fight. But you do get to see those moments where that draft, I think, just plays a little bit better into the hand, into their hands. When, you know, at the end of the day, 17, 11, and 8, I think Yado was a huge driving factor for this team. Everybody else ends up coming out negative, not doing a whole lot in terms of kill death, but you see those kills coming through for Ratatouille at the key times. Also, it's almost 200,000 damage, so you can't really say anything bad about the Victor. 130,000 damage there for Penguin as well. I think did a great job controlling the bleachers. Sanguine were able to pick up more kills and maybe a flashier fashion, but at the end of the day, I think, as much as I love Cassie and Leon with all of my heart, they just are going to be a little harder to make look good against a team that is going to have as ease of access to damage as Team Prolific had.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if the lack of a kind of true flanker for Sanguine was the problem, because I feel like Ratatouille and Yato Acosta were just too comfortable this game, It didn't feel like they were pushed off their positions often enough. I mean, 180,000, I think, is plenty of proof of that. But I just don't know if necessarily lack of flanks was the problem, because Cool got back there periodically, so did Poison, so did Gogurt. But kind of as you alluded to earlier on, no one consistently was doing that, and they were able to do too much damage to Quick whenever his head showed up. The same for the con, and it just ended up being too much.
And this is where I think the divergence is going to come through. Prolific, that one was a very close win, but Sanguine normally doesn't, take those lightly overall. Like, they're very good at retaliating quickly. And I will always say this, whenever you're playing against a team, and there's one, which in my mind is Sanguine, that is a little bit higher up in my tier list of teams, whether the standings say that as well or not. Sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we don't. But, I mean, from what we've seen of them this year, they are easily one of the best teams in the world. And so knowing that things are a little shaky for them going into it, but it's a 4-3 loss, makes me more confident in their ability to go forward. Because countless times we've seen teams go to 5 games, but every time Sanguine wins, it would be like a 4-0, whereas every time Prolific wins, it's a 4-3. It's just those moments for Sanguine is making sure those 4-0s come up more often than a 4-3 does. And this is just interesting overall for ban changes, because I think everything that Sanguine get rid of is solid, but this Corvus taking such a precedent for them is maybe showcasing that they aren't just, well, they're just not happy with it. He's been doing well.
They do seem to want to get rid of it without having to worry about those snipers that did open up to get rid of both of those pocket healers, the Genos and the Corvus, both removed. But that does mean now that Team Prolific can pick up those snipers. They go to Strix right away, because why not? We've seen him do well on Stone Keep in the past. But I do think it's worth noting that Sanguine take away this Androxus from Yato Acosta, who had a great game on it on Splitstone just last map, and they're going to pair this Victor with it as well, too. I mean, they might not have the Androxus this time, but they also might not need it, Gore.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what Prolific, I want to say, like, again, we just saw them have a pretty decent Bomb King. I like Bomb King on Stone Keep.
That's a good point.
And I think if I see Strix, Victor, if you're going for a third damage, I think Bomb King's on that list. Maeve, Eevee, even though we haven't gotten to see a whole lot of them lately, have always been on that list. People who can control or keep your teammates' heads like just on a swivel is always going to be solid. But Bomb King, still one of my favorites, especially against, I think, Terminus Grover. It's a very kind of Death Ball-esque draft here from Sanguine. And so I think you could lock him down pretty easily there. Otherwise, I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. Terminus against Inara is pretty solid. I like Grover on this map. I think you could definitely play to counter it, but I like the draft so far from Sanguine.
I mean, we like their draft on Splitstone as well, right? It's
True.
just that it didn't quite end up working out. But I'm with you. I mean, Terminus feels so strong right now. It kind of feels like if you're going to have a solo tank or a traditional point tank, then you want Terminus or Inara right now. And so Sanguine ended up taking their choice in the Terminus. And it feels like they want to match that sniper pressure from Prolific. So they're going to take the Kinessa as well. So they got Kinessa and Androxus for that backline damage, the Grover for that support for them as well. So we get a chance to see if they want to add some more frontline presence, or do they want to add some more damage? I think that this is plenty more damage.
Yeah, Tyra literally only doing one thing, damage, and if she doesn't do it, then you haven't picked her for the right reasons. I'm curious to see what they're going to run with this. Earlier we saw the Mercy kill running more nade shots, having damage reduction. Definitely helpful against Victor and Strix. That Eevee, it's normally a ban for teams like Sanguine when you have a bunch of guys that used to play console and are now still on controller. Keeping up with Eevee isn't the easiest thing to do, and Prolific maybe going to be able to showcase that this game. I'd love to see it, because it's just been so long, Finch, since I've gotten to see a really good Eevee.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're going to give this to Yato after his game on that Androxus. I mean, because you'd think should be able to do similar work on the Eevee as well. We're moving on to Stone Keep, though, for game number 2. And right now, Prolific have Team Sanguine, certainly, you know, the number 1 standard in North America, Phase 1. Up against the ropes already as we move on to our second map here, Goran. I'm excited to see exactly what the bounce back plan is from Sanguine, because you already mentioned that this is one of those teams that on the back of a loss are a pretty scary team to face, so they've got our chance to show us here.
And I'm surprised, maybe not too surprised, to see that it is Penguin running this, because it was just on the Bomb King, typically blaster, so you're at least keeping pace there. But maybe a little bit of pressure to make this work. I always am a sucker for good Eevee play, though. It's part of the reason Frog is one of my favorite players to watch, because for a long time Frog was just an Eevee main, and made it look good. It's been something that has graced the highest levels of Paladins for a long time, and Finch, it's just so fun. It is a different game when you have a phenomenal Eevee.
Well, Penguin has taken this Androxus completely out of the fight. You want to come back? Well, I say no. Penguin pokes his head out and puts a little bit more damage down and recognizes where Penguin is, keeps the chase going. Looking for him here in the back line. Is able to make it back towards Churchside while Prolific control the midpoint up to 36% already. And again, he gets aggressive. This time, though, looking for the sniper in the back. Takes care of Cool and gets rid of the Kinessa. Gogurt falls as well on that Tyra. Finally, though, Poison does come out and get the better of Penguin, but at this point, hasn't he done enough? Gore Prolific on top 3-1 and controlling the mid.
Look, I can come into this and talk about missing some shots or what have you. At the end of the day, Penguin did exactly what Penguin needed to do. Maybe there's a player out there that finds both kills and is laughing their way away, taunting or something. At the end of the day, there were 2 pairs of eyes that were on top of Penguin. He killed one. Now he's killed the other, although that counts as a respawn, so I don't know if I'm going to give him full credit for it. But having that much attention drawn to yourself, the rest of the teams or the rest of the fight is a 4v3 in favor of your team. You're absolutely walking away with that if you have the Victor and the Strix when they're going Tyra, Grover, Terminus into it. Yeah, you're going to be able to win that. So I think this Eevee already is off to a good start.
Yeah, I feel like I owe Penguin a notarized apology on fancy stationery. I mean, this Eevee has looked excellent so far, so I won't be disappointed that it's not on Iato. And already they've made it around to this final choke point. They have the Barrage in the back pocket, the Whirlwind as well, so if they're willing to spend some cash, this conversion looking realistic. Ratatouille getting the better of Poison with a little bit of help from Penguin. And now to the back line to take care of Cool again is Penguin. That is the Kinessa, fighting 0 value so far here. Gore quick in the back line in some trouble as well, though. Does find a big leap, but Ratatouille wins that matchup as well. Poison barely respawning in to take care of Penguin, but he's basically alone. What's he supposed to do?
This is that awkward moment where you do finally find something, you know, in retaliation. You get a kill. You took down Eevee. It's a celebration worth having. And you lose everything else in the process. So again, Penguin, like 4-2-3, that's solid. 5-0-2, 4-0-6 are his compatriots. And that's the thing, 2 deaths on Prolific throughout all of that, both on the Eevee. And
wow,
as much as I like to sometimes meme and be like, oh, well, look at the feeder, it's also like this middle ground where it's like Penguin's doing his job better than anybody on Prolific, just because of the fact that so many people are paying attention to him instead of trying to deal with the Inara, or they can't get to the Strix or the Victor, because if you leave Eevee alone, she's gonna kill you.
Yeah, Penguin has been essential, I'd argue, to this Prolific strategy here so far. It has kept not just Poison under control, but this Kinessa Cool has struggled as well. A couple of shots making their way through from Ratatouille, but that keep side shall belong to Sanguine. Already onto the point is the Inara, taking some damage from Gogurt up top on the Tyra, as it looks like there is continued aggression away in the backline from this Eevee going forward. Quick, though, the one planted on the point for now, but taking a ton of damage, is able to successfully make it back to the keep. I spoke too soon.
So good.
That was the ultimate from Sin Cara coming out, willing to use the seismic crash to guarantee the kill onto the Terminus.
And this is, again, just good play from Penguin in the right spot, right time, finds the kill. Good lockdown from that seismic crash as well, and now it's even more awkward. I think if you're Kinessa and you don't take that shot, you're already uncomfortable and you don't know what to do. Now you're locked down, you don't know where the Strix is going to be firing from. You're taking too much damage if you're quick. This is not looking like a good fight for Sanguine.
I'm glad we're following along with Yato this time. He's had some great work here in the backline. Used the flashbang, point blank to take care of Cool. Does get handled by Baller Steve, but how often do you see Strix is going in aggressive like that to shut down the opposing sniper? The battle continues on the midpoint. The overtime ticking in favor of Prolific, and Penguin says, I'm done with overtime and give me the mid-win. That is 3-0 now in favor of Prolific, and Penguin still poised up front with the ultimate in tow, looking to make a play, goes to the back line, thinks better of it, retreats, but still creating plenty of space for Prolific to work with.
All I can think is very recently I saw a meme of a keyboard of an EV player, and about the left 25%, left fourth of the keyboard was just a giant Q button. Because guess what you're doing? You're blinking in, you're blinking out. You're blinking in, you're blinking out, and then you're hoping that somewhere in between those you're hitting some of those shots. As of right now, that has been exactly what Penguin is on. And it's just keeping people of Sanguine, again, turning their heads so much. Part of the reason we used to see Eevee and Maeve so often is their mobility and how fast they can move around. And right now, they're getting to show that full prowess here against Sanguine. Unfortunately, you lose your tank, and that's the downside of triple DPS. I'm used to saying this when Sanguine are running triple DPS, so this is something I haven't gotten to break down as fast. But hey, you lose the Inara, and almost all of their pressure on the payload disappeared in the same breath. And so it's burning some time here in favor of Sanguine.
This is good for Sanguine, but you get the sense that once they're all back in full strength, Prolific are going to go all in exactly like this. Penguin gets the kill on the Cool, though it does cost him his life. The ultimate coming out from the Damba does get a little bit of control topside, but Sin Cara slowly but surely starting to move in this payload. That forces Quick to give up his high ground positioning and come down to contest. Good wall, buy some time, but now isolated over the wall. Went poison, forced him back, and Steve gets the kill. So that's now 2 successful defense in a row for Sanguine as they push back Prolific. And in a 3-0 situation, they absolutely need to find a way to make this defense work.
I like the angles. This is where snipers are going to be beneficial for Sanguine and maybe detrimental for Prolific. Strix can hold some interesting angles, but I think Kinessa, just wider field of view, is going to be able to find easier shots onto the aggressors here. It's part of the reason you want her on defense. It's a nice long range of sight, and Yato, unfortunately now dead, is not able to find anything big to get rid of this Kinessa. Somebody else needs to step up to the plate.
The barrage was used already, though, from Ratatouille. That opened up this side a bit more. Now the grenade comes through, and Penguin able to get the double. Way in the back, Quick's in trouble. A double for Ratatouille as well as Prolific find the conversion. A 4-0 up against Sanguine on Stone Keep, and Gore. I mean, Splitstone was at least back and forth, but here on Stone Keep, that didn't even seem particularly close.
Look, if you tell me with the drafts they had in Splitstone Quarry, Sanguine lose 4-3, and then and no drafts were mentioned, you just said, okay, and then we go to Stone Keep and someone wins 4-0. I almost always assume that it's Sanguine that came through, and they were just like, yeah, they had a bad game, it was a rough loss, whatever, and then they turned it around. But Prolific has had a history of being able to find out exactly Sanguine's weakness, and so far, it seems to be showing here as well. Ratatouille 10-2 and 13, 12-3 and 6 there for Penguin. And Ball and Barry doing exactly what you want out of a support. 0-0-17 there at the end. So just nothing but streaks for him. And, you know, Finch, it's amazing to see Prolific come through. Again, a lot of these players have played for a while, but they've never been able to maybe climb up that way to the top. And there's still a lot of room to grow here in the PPC, and a lot of teams that you have to play to prove yourselves. But to 4-0 Sanguine, period, is a very, very well done task.
Yeah, I mean, Prolific just played so cleanly, and I really do think it kind of starts and ends with Penguin. The main reason that Ball and Barry go so undying is because Poison literally never had a chance to consider going to the back line. No. He was constantly trying to keep that Eevee in check basically all game, and really struggling with it, if we're being honest, Score. I mean, it was not easy for him to try and lock them down. So now we make our way on to Bright Marsh, and I gotta ask you if you think this can be a change of pace that's beneficial for Sanguine, because they need something at this point. 2-0, and that last one, they don't even get a single point. I mean, that's gotta be weighing on them.
Yeah. So there's a few maps. Frozen Guard, not in right now. Bazaar, Shattered Desert, both of them are banned. And then Ice Mines that come to my mind as maps that are 4-0-able, but they're realistically like you're planning on trying to take your time, slow down the momentum. Bright Marsh doesn't ring that same bell for me. Like, this is one that you can, like, you will see 4-3s on here. I think in the World Championship last year, we had 4-3s on Brightmarsh. But what it comes down to with Brightmarsh is maybe a finer balancing point. You know, if you get too close drafts with too close teams, yes, you're going to go the distance. But sometimes you're also just going to go ahead and end up in a spot where you might just find yourself 4-0ing and getting steamrolled just as quick.
Well, that's got to make Penguin feel pretty good, right? Sanguine dropping some respect, it feels like, onto the Eevee, taking that out of the picture. And honestly, can you blame them? I mean, you and I were just saying it feels like Penguin was kind of the centerpiece of that dominant stone keep for them. But I feel, and the Androxus, they do not want a flanker for Prolific to determine how this match goes.
We like that. The problem I have is Brightmarsh does open up some areas and some champions that I otherwise wouldn't think exist. Now, Victor and Vivian, well, Vivian banned away. Victor's still out there, so I'm going to go ahead and say my dreams of seeing Drogos again are completely dashed. As long as there's someone who's hit scan in the game, I doubt he's ever going to see the light of day. Even though I think he's still good and could do well on this map. Not against a Victor, not against a Leon, so definitely a lot of things there for Sanguine that could cause some trouble. But Willow is still available, and I like Willow on Brightmarsh. So I will say Prolific, who have already shown a propensity to go to some of these blasters, I think can pick up something like a Willow. I'd love to see like the Bomb King, Eevee, Willow trifecta there for Penguin. I think it'd be a fun little traverse for him. But we'll have to see if he's able to make that change, or if Prolific go for something maybe a little more standard.
The Zin and the Corvus coming through now for Team Prolific. So you got to think the Inara still out there and be one that they want. The Genos as well, but it looks like Sanguine want the Damba instead of the Genos. I mean, how often do we see double support? I mean, is it possible the Genos could come back in later, Gore, or are they going to be just going with this Damba?
It kind of depends. Normally, if I was going to look at anyone doing double support, it'd actually be like Corvus Genos over there. I guess Corvus can be their fusion name. But, you know, Damba, unless you're just going to run him as stun machine, you really want him as your healer. And Binary Star Genos exists, and we've seen people play it. It can do decent damage. But, man, if I'm not running Luminary, I'm trolling, right? Like, I mean, I have to come in and pick that up. So I really do. Unless Prolific want to run for some extra damage amp, I just think we might not even see him in this game.
Yeah, good point as the ROM Talus comes in for Prolific. So this does give them some great ways to still get to the back line, the same way that the Androx and the Eevee would have done with this Zen, with this Talus. Now Zen, depending on if he goes to the Guillotine, might be a little bit more preoccupied line, but Talus, though, should be able to get back there and wreak some havoc, and they've got this ROM up front to literally soak up damage, and then hopefully collecting those souls, get it all healed back up. But now with Sanguine's the Con Cassie coming through, so Sanguine do have this double front line, then the Victor and the Cassie for the backline damage, and the Damba to keep them healed up. Can this comp for Sanguine get them back into this set?
Big guns.
I want to say yes, and I actually think that Ruckus maybe makes it a little easier for Sanguine overall.
Oh.
But there's a little bit of pressure on Cassie of everyone on this team to perform. I think her and Inara have the hardest jobs throughout all of this. Inara, pretty much the only tank on the board that, in my mind, is a standard point tank. Rom and Ruckus going to be able to control the sides. But there's a certain point, if you kill him fast enough on Sanguine, then the Inara is going to be the only target left. So it'll be easy to take down. But that Cassie, I mean, big game with Wrecker, can melt through a Ruckus in his shield, can melt through a Rom if she's able to get in the right position, get the shots off. But it's staying alive through all of that causes pressure. I think Sanguine have a good draft to deal with Prolific, but making it work is going to be high execution base. I think Burst Mode Victor is going to be helpful, but it's Impulse Cassie right now. I always think big game because it was just the thing for so long. But having that little bit of extra damage, having it more often, is going to help. But I'm looking at the Zen, the Corvus, the Talus now, which will be diving poison more often, but maybe not going to be the tank killer I assumed.
Well, it will be Penguin on that Zen here this time, Yado on the Talus, and Ratatouille on this Ruckus, who should be able to make great use of that mobility, you feel like, on a map like Bright March. He's getting aggressive into the apartment. So is Yado. They want to take Baller Steve out right away, and it absolutely works to perfection. Baller Steve on the Damba already removed. Quick on the point may have racked up some easy percentage. They're already at the 51, but he gets gobbled up by Penguin and Yado working together. Poison and Gogurt elsewhere do find some critical kills. They needed those, but right now Prolific with the ones in control of this midpoint. Though with Khan coming in, maybe they have to give it up.
They have to let up a little bit, but I mean, 51 to 33, no one standing on the point. I don't think you're stressed if you're Prolific right now. All you have to do is burn through the Inara, and you did it so fast last time. I don't think they're too stressed about that. But it is a little bit of pressure on Yado. I mean, I always forget how much shred potential Talus has. But he's one of the few who can help burn through an Inara health bar pretty quickly. Unfortunately, you also see Inara doing that pretty often, which is taking damage, and all the while her health bar seems to be going up instead of down.
Exactly what was happening to Sin Cara there. He gets to the backline and keeps the casty busy. Penguin shreds quick very, very quickly, and already suddenly 99% for Prolific. They're into overtime. Gogurt and Cool and Poison have all fallen. That means it's just Baller Steve in the back, and he will certainly leave the land of the living. A full-on wipe, essentially, for Sanguine, is Prolific now on a 5-0 streak in terms of points. And Sanguine looking around for answers. I think it's worth mentioning one more time that Wadu is not here, so I don't want to take this too hard for Sanguine. They're playing with Quick instead, but still, I'm surprised at how different this team looks.
When things are shuffled up, I mean, especially on your front line, I think a lot of people... We always highlight the DPS players, and you'll see why a lot of the time. Their names show up, their KDAs look good. Support's always there for you. If they're not alive, then you're not getting heals, and they absolutely matter, especially some of the 6 ults we've seen. But front lines, I think, are like the pace of the game. If you do not have a good front line for you, then you're going to lose it. And I think Quick is solid, but when you've been playing with Wadu the whole time, and you definitely have a style that seems to fit around Wadu, you're going to be feeling it when they're not around, and I think that's what's going on here for Sanguine. Those flashes of great right now are still coming through when the rest of the players step up, but you can feel the front line maybe isn't hitting exactly the notes they're used to.
Wow.
So maybe it's going to take a little bit of time for them if this stays the case, especially if Prolific are just going to continue running the show. They don't even get time to warm up right now.
So Sanguine take the reset, it looks like, especially with Gogurt dropping off. It looks like they want this high ground back so they can be in position. But Ratatouille's pushed up close and waiting underneath. Remember, he has the mobility to make it up there exactly like this. Has the Hexafire as well, but immediately gets answered back. Believe that was the ultimate coming out from the Khan to lock him down. So Ratatouille gets stuffed right away. Poison gets the kill credit for it, and that means it's Team Prolific that are resetting this time, falling back and looking to regroup around Ratatouille and around their ROM when they make it back.
Hexafire is up, though, so honestly expect to see that same exact Ruckus play, but this time without getting overpowered by the Khan. I would love to see Ratatouille get aggressive with it. It is difficult, though. If you miss your Hexafire, if it doesn't find a couple of kills, and you kind of feel like you've wasted it at the end of the round, has to find himself into a good position. That is the saying for all of Prolific right now. There's some low health bars. They need to heal up and figure this out.
They are looking low, aren't they? But there's what you predicted. The Ruckus trying to make his way up to the high ground. Does not quite get there, has to retreat. And now there could be trouble for the Xin. He's able to make it out of there, but the Barrage gets a double cool. Able to take care of Yado and Penguin, and able to get both. Now they're throwing Sin Cara back, and that should be it. We were questioning and worrying about Sanguine, but a solid defense keeps them alive here on Bright Marsh.
Yeah, that'll do it. Not even half the time, almost every time. If you're able to get a double kill with a Barrage with that much time left on the clock, it will absolutely turn things around. So good on Cool, be able to pick it up. I think notable, though, Ball and Berry, 2-0 and 8. And that's actually something, Finch, I've been trying to figure out where to fit this in, because I think this is maybe one of the most important things. Prolific 3-0ing Sanguine can only be topped by one thing in my mind, and it is the battle of who is more ballin'. Ballin' Barry or Baller Steve? It has been a conversation that we have had in Paladins for a long time. Whenever we see these names, it would always come up. And the fact that they're in game against each other makes this easier. Whoever wins this, I guess, gets the Ballin' crown, and it is, in fact, more ballin' than the other player. And Ball and Barry has been on a very good level right now. I think it was really funny. History for everyone. Here's a little history lesson. Ball and Barry showed up on console one day, and we were like, who is this guy? This is a ridiculous name. We're laughing about it. And then he proceeded to hit some of the most insane genotypes we had seen in a day. Now, it was a Monday morning, so maybe we were tired, maybe, I don't know what was going on. But it was just a phenomenal morning, and since then that name has been ingrained in my brain. And even though he's not on the genos here, I think he's been showcased time and time again since that kind of debut, that he is a really solid support, and keeping up with someone like Baller Steve is not easily done. And so I think kudos to him and the team right now on Prolific for being able to showcase just a great display of skill against someone like Sanguine.
Getting a tracker for who has the ball and title. Perhaps it can go to Ball and Berry, since it looks like it was Baller Steve was the one that had the issue, and we had to take the quick pause to get him back into the game. But Sanguine looking much better in their mid-fight here this time, aren't they, Gore? 66% already in the back pocket. The Dread Serpent coming out as well. They want to maintain control over this midpoint, and it works. Ratatouille gets locked down. They also lock down Penguin for the double. And all of Sanguine forced to, or not all of Sanguine, but Prolific forced to try and fall back out. Zinkara does step up and get the kill into quick. He uses the ultimate as well, trying desperately to keep Prolific in this mid-fight, but they just turn around and take care of Yato. Now up in the air, they've got the Rom as well, who's trying to hold on, but Zinkara finally ends up falling. The Ruckus trying to make his way in too as the overtime is ticking. Looks like the Zen has found himself to get a touch, so Sanguine can't feel like they have this done yet, but now they can feel better. They get the capture, and Prolific finally on the back foot.
I have to remember this is Sanguine's map, so I'm holding my breath every single time I see them, teetering on the edge of losing a fight around this point. You have to win this one to stay alive, not just in this set, but I think just mentally right now, if you lose that mid right there, then maybe we see Prolific start to run away the rest of the game. Winning that puts you in a position, even if it goes 2-2, even if it goes 3-1, no matter what, you'll find yourself comfortable. And honestly, as time goes on, again, items make Sanguine's draft a little bit better. Still going to be difficult and all execution based. I think Team Prolific are going to be able to shred through them and cause a lot of damage and just be a thorn in their side the whole game. But I like Cassie late game. I love Victor late game. I love Damba. I love Inara. I love Khan as they age. So Sanguine, they can just hold on to this. They're going to be able to find themselves some good moments. It's all about good ult usage and good positioning now.
And you talked about earlier, Gore, about how Sanguine, or rather how Team Prolific, are going to have some troubles kind of setting up on the point. They can't just go in there and sit with the Rom and with the Ruckus, not the way they normally could, as Poison does find a double. Sanguine going to be able to fight their way back towards the cart and keep it rolling. So Prolific have seemed to struggle in that area on these mid-fights, trying to set up these other side lanes to move through instead of the Rom and the Ruckus. Those getting stuffed by Sanguine so far, at least on that last mid-fight. Now starting to move up a little bit further, are Sanguine, with 4 ultimates in the back pocket. So we'll get to see how much they'd like to win this conversion, or if they are comfortable, as you mentioned earlier, moving into the 2-2 on the back of this fight. But Team Prolific come out in a hurry, hunting down Poison, but they have the answers. Poison takes care of Yato, and Cool takes care of Penguin. It's a double for Poison. Steve gets in there too, and this should be a conversion. No way the Corvus can do it on his own. Sanguine find the 3-1, and Prolific, all of a sudden, Brightmar's starting to get away from them. They got to find a way to get back in control.
Now, if this was flipped, then I would say that comeback mechanic plus the double tank for Sanguine should give them a point capture, no problem, and this game's going to go on for a little longer. But now I'm looking over here, Sankara, Ratatouille, 2-11 there for the Ruckus. Not a great game, and this is the final round for you to try and turn that around. I think if that 2-11 doesn't turn into just something better in the next couple of minutes, then, well, one, we probably will just see Sanguine win, but even if Prolific are able to capture, I don't know that they get a map win unless this Ruckus starts hitting a little harder. You can't argue with Ball and Berry's 13 streak, Penguin, Yato, and Zinkara, even though Zinkara hasn't had the best game. The 3 of them have been doing fine. I think there's just more pressure for this Hexafire to be maybe one of the best ones that we've gotten to see in the game to turn this around.
They're certainly going to need it. A couple long flanks coming out from Prolific because they can't just go stand on the point, trying to collapse in. There's the ultimate, followed by the Hexafire coming out from the Ruckus as well, and that has lit up the kill feed. Baller Steve, at the very least, gets a kill in return. Gogurt going to use the overpower to try and find a return kill, and it looks like that does work to take care of the Rom. That should open this mid-fight back up, but Quick being shredded is still healing, but it is not going to be enough. It's Ball and Berry that gets the last bit of damage, and with that fast cap working, with Yato stepping forward to get them off their mounts, maybe Team Prolific can hold on. They've been able to lock down one member over to the side, and they can get this into a 2-3 scenario and maybe can try and find a decent offense.
for anyone who's a tank main, I feel like they've always felt, and have felt at least, Quick's pain there, where you're walking away from one guy with a Gatling gun shooting you, and you walk right into the other guy who has a machine pistol who's shooting you, and you don't really win in either of those scenarios, and I think that's just the unfortunate spot for Sanguine. Very aggressive on the docks, and I mean, because they have ults that are very beneficial to being over there, control that's good over on docks, but they give up maybe too much ground around the mid-fight. With comeback mechanic there for Prolific, even if this doesn't go their way in terms of a conversion, I think they did a great job just being able to come in and set up on the point. It's not a composition that does it as well as Sanguine's does, and so great for them to be able to take that middle room.
Does look like they have been stalled out a bit as Ball and Barry need to pause. We'll give him a moment to get everything sorted out with his issues that he's having right now. But this is important signs of life for, I don't know if it's whether to say for Sanguine in the set showing us some signs of life, or Prolific in this map here on Brightmarsh showing us some signs of life. But it looks like we might finally start to see the script get a little flipped.
And it's that question. Sanguine are able to get up 3-1, but can they hold on to that amount of pressure? Can Prolific come through and maybe surprise everybody with a 3-0? Because I feel like if you tell me Prolific, you typically see them beat Sanguine in community tournaments, like, okay. But when it comes to PPC, I still expect Sanguine, maybe it's 3-1 win for Sanguine, right? If Prolific 3-0 them, then I think it's just impressive by all merits what they've been able to pick up. That's a good Dread Serpent. Right now, if you're watching Sanguine, they can't win off of this defense, but they can definitely stop Prolific from being close to winning by slowing them down here.
It still feels like a lot's on the line for Sanguine, right? Like I mean, it's so different coming into this next mid-fight with the 3-2 as opposed to that 3-3, and Prolific potentially just being one more mid-win away from taking this game. So you can tell Sanguine really do want this defense. They're in a great position to make it happen, getting aggressive with their zone now onto Prolific's side of the map and keeping them pushed far back, even taking care of the Talus a little bit. And I wonder how much of this is maybe this composition from Prolific, because they seem to have been struggling here so far in Brightmarsh to have the same success we saw on Stone's Keep and Splitstone.
Well, I think, again, Ratatouille has been where my eyes were at the beginning of the round. Still, I think, a key factor for Prolific being able to win this. And there's a couple of kills being picked up. It's a 2-streak, so I'm not going to say anything big about it. But Hexafire charged up. Overtime, it's not as hard on Brightmarsh as it is on other maps, so this is still a good area for them. Overpower is available, so Ratatouille might end up in the exact same position as before, where you try to get onto the high ground and then you just yeet it off. But honestly, that might be worth it. If you don't use your Hexafire, you can force at least one ult away from Sanguine here.
That's going to be the call. Are Prolific just looking to strip away resources, or do they believe a conversion possible? Lots of damage coming through already, though. Getting healed up by Ball and Barry and desperately needing it was Penguin over to the side. Trying to bide their time here a little bit more are Team Prolific, but Gogurt gets the opening pick onto Ratatouille. Penguin falls as well for a double kill for Gogurt, and that really should be it. Sanguine get the defense. Sanguine hold on to all of their ultimates as well. And now we move into this all-important next mid-fight here, Gore, where all 10 ultimates are on the table.
Now they're down by 1 point, so Prolific are picking up 4% every other tick, so they're still going to capture just a smidge faster than Sanguine, which makes it just as important for Sanguine to get quick on the point. And at 1-8, you got to keep them alive on the point as well. And I was 2-11 there, has now turned into 8-14, so 6-3 picked up there for Ratatouille. A very good round coming down from Prolific, especially for the frontliners. Maybe not so much for Sin Cara, who I think was 4-6 and is now 4-10. So things go well for Ratatouille. Maybe get traded off there for the ROM. But that's the kind of round you need. And like you said, all 10 ults available. I think there's a lot of pressure. Suite of ultimates. I'm leaning a little towards Sanguine, but we'll have to see. A good Hexafire changes the pace of everything and can erase, the utilization of 3 good ults from Sanguine.
There's the Dread Serpent coming out from Baller Steve, but doesn't seem to have quite gotten the same value we saw before. But there's the kill. Yato ends up falling. Seismic Crash from Quick comes out as well without finding much, but it has been a 1-for-1 so far. Maybe things get a little bit worse as Cool ends up dropping, but so does Ball and Barry. Without their Corvus, a lot of healing gone for Team Prolific, but Ratatouille gets one to poison. Yato takes care of Gogurt, and Quick is isolated over to the left. Penguin from the midpoint gets the kill, even flexing a little bit here on the midpoint as the percent starts to rack up for Prolific. If they can hold this positioning and move back to a 3-3, then maybe they have a chance here on Bright Marsh. After all, Cool and Sanguine now trying to decide exactly what this retake's going to look like.
All Cool needs is a good angle, though. Barrage is available. Quick should be able to get in, although it's going to be dangerous. That wall actually might end up hurting the Barrage a little bit more. Forced to use it close range there in the backline for Cool.
Yeah, Ratatouille ends up killing him on the backside of it as well. They may have lost Sin Cara, and now they're Ruckus, so this is going to be a lot harder for Prolific without any one of those tanks to step in and control this point. There's the ultimate from Gogurt as well. The damage still has not been put, though, onto the Zen, and the Zen's still alive. They delay it. Penguin eventually ends up fighting the dust, but they've moved all the way up to 99%, and now their tanks can start moving in. Poison steps forward, gets the kill on the Ball and Barry, but now the Rom and the Ruckus are back, and Poison having to hold this down with Gogurt, but Gogurt now left alone. Ratatouille took care of Poison, but they get the return kill onto Sin Cara. Ratatouille falls as well. It's a double for Cool, and maybe Sanguine can get the win. They do indeed take care of Bright Marsh, and this set shall extend on a bit further.
And that's, again, that's good for Sanguine at this point. I think a 3-0 today would be a little demoralizing, even if you don't have that main tank that you've been playing with all year. So, good to get their feet under them, although, again, maybe a little closer than they would like trying to get there. 1-10 for Quick, definitely was some of the struggles there, but Poison was 17, 9, and 22. Poison put about everything you could out there to make sure it worked, and right behind him was Cool at 17, 8, and 21, which I think technically comes out to a better KDA because he has that one less death, but either way, I mean, just one number from that death and assist column, about 20,000 more damage, though, for Cool. A lot of good moments for them that maybe could be cleaned up just a little bit, but I think Sanguine really did find their footing towards the latter half of that game. And even, I guess, after round one, realistically, when they found themselves up 3-1, was just a good showcase. It was all kind of the flip on this defense. It felt like everything was going wrong while it was 1-0 in favor of Prolific, and then they just stopped it.
And remember what the big adjustment was from Sanguine coming into this one. They banned away the Androxus and the Eevee and kind of told Prolific that if they were going to get it done, they were going to have to find some other way to do it. And I just don't know that the Talus and the Ruckus were really the answer in that regard for Miser. I wonder if Team Prolific still have a little bit of work to do to figure out for themselves if Sanguine are going to come back in with those same bans. I mean, they didn't seem to have quite that same backline disruption and damage potential that we saw from them on other maps.
Yeah, I think that's the question when we go to whatever map is next. I mean, that's Sanguine's map pick, and it was that still long of a struggle. So you're going to wherever Prolific want to go next. They're going to be able to control the draft. Should be first pick as long as they want it. I can't think of many reasons you don't want first pick right now on Paladins. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that I think are going to be in favor of Prolific going into this next one, which means Sanguine have to step up even harder than they did there on Bright Marsh to make sure it goes their way.
Sanguine are going to need it, too, if they want to extend this all the way to a fifth map. We should have our map 4 on the other side of a very quick break. We'll be right back with more Paladins. Paladins Pro Circuit, still with Finch and Gore, and still in the middle of Prolific up against Sanguine here in North America. And up to this point, Gore Prolific have looked pretty good. It was a 4-3 on Splitstone, a 4-0 on Stone Keep. That boat went the way of Prolific. But then we move on to map 3. Bright Marsh and Sanguine show us through some strong mid-fights and maybe some good picks and bans that they're certainly still in this set. So it will be on to Ice Mines next. And as you already covered for us on the end of map 3, this should be the one where Prolific picked the map, obviously, but also where they'll likely take that first pick, and maybe they can still get some strong champions for them so they don't end up in such a tough position as we saw in Bright Marsh.
And it does come down to questions of play. I mean, one of the biggest things for Bright Marsh, we saw Eevee bans that came out because of what we saw on Stone Keep. And while I don't think of Eevee, even though this is an ice map, she doesn't necessarily jump to the front of my mind. Victor's very big on Ice Mines. I think this is one of his better maps, so maybe Prolific able to scoop that one away from Sanguine, give them an advantage. This is also, and every time I say it, he never comes through, but this is a good map for Dredge. And a good map for Drogos. There are 2 blasters that are available on this map that maybe aren't as easily accessible on others. Whether we'll see them is up in the air, but I can stand by the fact this is a good map for them no matter what.
It'll be the Vivian and the Strix taken out right away. As predicted, it will indeed be Prolific in that first big position. They also ban away the Victor and the Inara be taken away from Sanguine. So we'll have to see some other options as so far as those frontliners go, though Genos and Corvus should be available. I mean, on Bright Marsh, though, I don't believe we saw Genos, or maybe it was on Stone Keep. Can't exactly remember which one, but Genos was passed over earlier, so doesn't necessarily have to be picked here, though Prolific are going to go ahead and grab Corvus right away. No reason not to. One of our strongest supports that we have right now.
Big AoE slow, percentage damage, hits all the marks for me, at least as far as I'm concerned, so he's going to be able to do well there. But, with Inara banned away, there's only 2 tanks that immediately jump to my mind that are incredibly solid on Ice Mines. One of them is that Terminus. The other one would end up being Fernando, who I think can do well. But Sanguine have been picking up Khan, and now they have Bomb King, so if they do pick Khan, then he's not going to have much to worry about. So I think if Prolific runs something like a Fernando, it's maybe in a little bit of danger, so they'll have to figure out what they want to do, at least in terms of their draft and their tank. But it's also what they want to do in terms of DPS. I'll admit, Kinessa wasn't very high on my list of things I expected to see.
Me either. No, but I mean, I guess in a world where the Strix is missing, that does give them the solo sniper presence here on Ice Mines. And we have seen some times where with the longer angles on this map, that sometimes the snipers can dominate, but we'll have to see. And it is the Fernando, sort of as you anticipated, coming through here next for Prolific. Is he going to have some of those same troubles if you're up against the Bomb King as well, or should he be able to handle?
The Bomb King he should be able to handle. It's if they decide to go Khan, which I think Bomb King Fernando would be good against Khan, as we got to see a little bit earlier. But right now, I don't know if Sanguine want to pick it up. I mean, he was such a good side tank for them earlier. And on this map, you've got a very clear shot at killing someone when you're on the mid fight with your overpower. You just throw them off the edge. Maybe it's just a little too weak. So I'm going to lock in that ROM. And I don't know, I like it and I don't like it. ROM, in this case, is also a counter just because his ult destroys shields, not as up as often as the commander's grab for Khan. But either way, you're still going to make sure that this Fernando isn't really confident in himself.
Whoa. Torvald coming in on the tail end of this draft here for Prolific, and we have not seen a lot of Torvald here lately, but when some teams have pulled him out, Gore, the shielding has looked still super strong. Obviously, the ultimate still very powerful as well, and now the Koga Prolific kind of reaching deeper into the bag here, it feels like, and pulling out some picks that we do not see all that often.
This is very Ice Mines and very temperamental, I think, for Prolific. This could be a very awesome game for them, and it could be a very bad game for them all at the same time. I think Sanguine, the Terminus, the Bomb King, and the Talus, all of them are great, but I'm wondering if Prolific have something up their sleeve. Kinessa, there's a couple of players I've seen make her look fantastic on this map. And when you're able to run her, you can pick her up on the point fight and still do well. She can do well on defense and on offense, although does slow down a little bit on offense overall. Fernando's solid. Torvald, I'm a little on the fence about, but he's just a secondary support. and Koga as well. I mean, he had a 100% win rate as of right now, only 8% pick rate, but when he's getting picked up, he's winning, so Prolific, I doubt they're going to meddle with the stats.
Yeah, perhaps they see something here into this draft from Sanguine where the Koga makes a ton of sense. This Talus, last picked though for Sanguine, could perhaps be the difference maker. I feel like a lot of his responsibility is going to be making it back there to the Knessa and causing some problems, but it is on to Ice Mines we go for our fourth map. For a while there, Gore, I didn't think we were going to make it here. Sanguine seemed to be struggling, especially on Stone Keep, but they bounced back on Bright Marsh, and now a chance on one of our slower maps of Ice Mines for them to drag this one all the way to a fifth map. Have Team Prolific figured out the answer, though, as we move into Game 4?
We'll have to see. Thanks, Grandpa. So protection's shield health by 500, so you're getting some pretty massive bubbles, as well as the Aegis there for Fernando. I'm trying to think of who on Sanguine has good record potential, and maybe that's actually what Prolific we're looking at as well, is the lack thereof. I mean, they're going to pick it up there for Poison, and this is someone that can run it. I mean, Bomb King's not terrible with Wrecker, but it's maybe not the first thing that comes to your mind when you're thinking Bomb King and trying to tear down shields. It's going to help him, though, against the Torvald. I think Sanguine are going to need a few more of them to make sure things continue going their way, though.
And it's Penguin on the Torvald as well. Is that what I saw? It certainly is. As Quick perhaps showing why I had some surprise there, taking care of Penguin early on. Ratatouille falls as well as Poison on the Bomb King gets the kill, and they're all lighting up for Sanguine here in this first mid-fight. Ballenberry steps forward too, wants to get reset with the squad, but Team Prolific getting shut out in this very first mid-fight. I barely even got a chance to get into a rhythm there as Sanguine won it so quickly.
Yeah, that's not really what you want to see when you're trying to win a game and shut down the set and be over with it, especially after losing on Brightmarsh. So maybe a little more pressure on Prolific to get into the fight. And, man, this is just not the way as of right now. Ratatouille goes down. No one's going to be able to touch for that point. I mean, this has given me some doubts into the prospects into the future as well.
Right.
There was not a lot to base it on. Prolific were just melted systematically there.
Cool, going to continue to get aggressive so they can find a couple more picks. It's Ratatouille that has been left out in the front, piloting that Koga picks, and Kara, recognizing that there might be some trouble, starts to fall back too, but they've already lost Gogurt on the side of Sanguine, so maybe Prolific can hold on to this defense after all as they take care of that ROM. But Kara immediately pushed back. Rule still seems to be uncontested. Will use that true power to get back there for the Knessa, but the Knessa able to reposition. Poison takes care of the Fernando, so Sanguine looking to keep this momentum going even further, pushing back Prolific as Cool has made his way back to the high ground. Ratatouille, though, is able to get that kill onto Baller Steve. That is a couple picks that have shown up now for Prolific thanks to Ratatouille. Yatoa Costa able to get one as well, so maybe they can hold on to this one. Prolific onto the defense, but Sanguine don't show me any signs of slowing down as Gogurt pokes his head around the corner.
They finally show some signs of life there for Prolific. I was wondering if this is going to be one of those rounds where I say, okay, now you just let that one wash over you and you go into the second one acting like nothing is there. Now they've showcased that they do have at least the ability to stop Sanguine. But, you know, Sanguine, 300 credits for grabbing the point, plus all the kills they got as fast as they got them. So maybe a little bit of money in their pockets as they got into that fight, or go into this fight. And now that they've already gotten that free back off, they're going to be able to come in maybe one tier up on an item, maybe a second item started, whatever they would like here for Sanguine. Which at the end of the day is just advantages for them, and I think we're going to see them start up another bloodbath.
And they certainly are. Sin Cara falls as well as Yato, willing to commit some ultimates as the Dread Serpent came out. Penguin will fall too to Quick, and Team Prolific have struggled mightily so far here on Ice Mines. The mid-fight was over instantaneously, and this offense for Sanguine starting to look pretty good too, as Prolific have to fall all the way back to their spawn. Poison already trying to have some bombs waiting for them when they step out. And now the cart right outside being converted already, and Poison and the boys have some ultimates if they're willing to commit them. Rom already dropped his, but they've lost Poison early on. Cool, just barely able to make it back out of there, as Yato does take care of that Bomb King, as we already mentioned. Gogurt getting stunned as well, so Prolific are able to find this defense after all. Quick shall fall too. I doubt we'll see the reanimate from him, and it looks like we won't, and Prolific get the successful defense.
All right, so good defense, although maybe a little too close for comfort.
A little
Get a
strained.
big ult out of Sanguine, though, with Rom having to drop his, so you at least have some good shielding coming up for you. But I'm going to just be honest, Finch. I don't know what to even point out for Prolific around the mid-fight because they died so fast last time around that I genuinely didn't get to make a comment or even observe what went wrong for them. So maybe just change everything coming into this round, at least around the mid-fight. Slow it down a little bit. And then you can find your way into it. But I'm looking at a record 2 already online. Surprised no one else is picking it up. But I guess Sanguine, since Poison's getting enough done and enough shots off, they aren't too worried about trying to pop any of the bubbles that Penguin throw out and burn down Fernando's shield in time.
Well, Gogurt gonna come all the way around already, trying to put some shots downrange, but it is Gogurt that is being forced to retreat. I say retreat, but he pulls out the charge, makes it all the way to the back, and is trying to get some damage in behind this Fernando, and Team Prolific do seem to be struggling already. They've been grouped up over the backside, and there's the King Bomb coming in for Poison, but it's Poison who ends up falling. They finally get the answer back as Sin Cara falls too. Gogurt traded out. I think Team Prolific, despite not being the ones that used that King Bomb ultimate, feel good about the repercussions of the King Bomb ultimate, as now they've got some control. But it's Sanguine with all the percentage on the points. They're at 72% and climbing. Cool gets the kill on the ball and Barry, and Sanguine continue their midpoint control.
And 84% Prolific, you're going to have a tough time catching up to that, but right now, still mostly alive. They lose Penguin, traded out for Quick, so you're on the fence. I don't know, the damage is starting to come true for Sanguine. The Bomb King's starting to hit hard, Finch. This is going to be difficult to try and pull back.
I mean, I just don't see how they could at this point here, right? The overtime slowly ticking down. No way that it could be Otto that steps forward to find a touch here. So Sanguine move on to the 2-1 and get right back on offense. And Team Prolific struggled on this last time. They barely slowed them down throughout the process just enough and they could win in overtime. But Sanguine are coming in wiser, older, and stronger with even more Wrecker there for Poison. So perhaps this will be an even more difficult defense for Prolific as Gogurt and his buddy Quick continue to make an impressive front line. There's the ultimate. It's responded to by the ultimate from Gogurt. Sanguine tried to keep up the pressure.
I mean, that's just gorgeously done from Gogurt. I mean, to be able to land that, not only a huge ult, but in the middle of the hyper beam so the team can stay aggressive. Maybe not paying off the way they want to. It has allowed Gogurt, and looks like Poison to get very aggressive, but Gogurt right now the only one who's paying off that aggression well. Everybody on Sanguine, I think, made a good play there. Unfortunately, it just didn't end up in the place they wanted to. So now we're kind of back to square one. But the payload's still over halfway there. Even deteriorating, it's not going to fall too far back. So a good spot for Sanguine to be in.
Yeah, I mean, they've made some decent progress with it, especially on ice mines. But the thing is that this aggressive zone can be pretty solid from Prolific if they are able to establish it. Ratatouille is off to the side looking for damage, but he's been locked down, is able to spend some of those charges to dash his way back through, and has rejoined his squad, but that is it for the aggressive zone. Sanguine now starting to force their way through it. Sin Cara recognizing just how much they need to hold on to this, tries to use the ultimate, but he's being pushed back as well. Ratatouille is fallen, and Sanguine are fully back into this, and they have caught back up with the cart at this point. And Poison trying to push Yada back off, even keeping track of him well as 2 kills come through for Sanguine. Yada, though, does end up finding 1 in return, but Gogurt keeps the momentum going. They've recognized that Penguin has to fall at this point. They burn him down as well, and maybe Sanguine can make this push happen after all.
Man, this is just insane for Sanguine. I mean, the damage shred, the fact that Torvald bubbles show up and disappear within the blink of an eye is just great for them right now, and it's slowing down Prolific, and a lot of this draft from working out for them. Gogurt has his ult, King Bomb's available, but they lose 2 in quick succession. Wow. 5 seconds left. I think Prolific are hanging on by a thread, but still hanging on.
Could this be the same situation where it's a good push for Sanguine basically the whole time, but at the last second they get pushed off, and that's exactly what it is. Another successful defense for Prolific. So here's the thing, Gore. I mean, I would say that Sanguine have looked miles better on ice mines than Prolific so far. The mid-fights have gone to them, and their offenses have been good too when they've been pushing. But here we are at the middle of the game, and it's 2-2. I mean, Prolific are still in it.
And this is I mean, Finch is an awkward spot to be in. Yes, you've won both mid-fights if you're Sanguine. Economy, going to be shifting in your favor. Items are all in their favor. You can see just a hint more than what you're going to see on Prolific. But I'm more worried about the fact that it's 2-2. Typically, this is where, you can see teams make a huge comeback. All you have to do is win this mid-fight, find a conversion for Prolific, and you win the whole set. So they just have to find out what they've been doing wrong, which, again, is kind of difficult. It feels like it's just pure damage shred potential from Sanguine. Maybe that King Bomb and Bomb King all together doing a lot. Because these ults could still be big from Sanguine, but if you can react to them in kind, Prolific, I think, still have a leg in the race.
Well, we were hoping something different would happen, but already it's looking like another confident fight for Sanguine. Poison opens it up with a double. Sin Cara is still standing back on the point, but Baller C takes care of Yado. They leave Sin Cara isolated on the point. He falls too, and just like that, Sanguine are back in control of this mid-fight. And this is how it can go on Ice Might sometimes, right? Where you can end up winning by only getting mid-fight wins and never converting. So certainly Sanguine don't need to panic, but I don't know how Prolific are supposed to push through all of this. Penguin steps forward, immediately gets stuffed, sent to the afterlife, and Quick is the one that gets the kill, continuing to push forward, looking for Baller Steve, but Yado has pushed past, gotten some damage onto Poison. The Dread Serpent is there, but Sanguine are able to win the mid-fight just that easily, frontwards and backwards, and they continue to push beyond.
So they haven't been easy defenses, but Prolific have found 2 defenses so far, and if I'm just going to operate under the assumption that maybe they find a third, this Quick shows off one of the best emotes that you can have in the game, the Frankenstein there for Terminus. But, the potential to defend here, Ice Mines is always a map you draft for that 3-3.5. That's what you're supposed to do, is draft for the end, so maybe they're prepared for that. Maybe that's something they have in the equation for this draft. Unfortunately, that isn't going well, Finch. I mean, none of these mid-fights have gone their way. So even if you make it to the very end, I don't know what to think. And right now, Prolific, I mean, low health bars all around. Getting some kills, though, which is going to slow Sanguine down. Minute and a half to burn to try and get a defense. I'm nervous about your defense here, but I think I'm even more nervous about if they defend here and then try to win a mid-fight. I just don't know if I have confidence in that.
Yeah, I mean, they have not given me any indication that there's some great plan in the back pocket there, Gore, that can make this fight suddenly go so differently. And Prolific have had to try and make some adjustments, I felt like, these last 2 maps. We've seen the Torbolt, we're seeing the Koga, we're seeing some picks that we do not often see, like we saw in Bright Marsh, but Sanguine have seemed to have the answers both times. And now, as they come flooding around the corner, perhaps they have the answers here yet again. But Poison falls to Yado as this Kinessa finds some value, but Quick gets the answer back, but the Fernando down, Ratatouille ulting just to try and stay alive. Then maybe this can be it, but Ratatouille ends up falling. Goku gets the answer. Penguin falls as well, and maybe Sanguine can keep this push going and try to find the conversion.
Well, Defender's advantage, 93% there for Corvus on his ult, and it's still got just about 10-15 feet for this payload to move forward. I think they're going to have to drop something here, but they can still try to defend it.
They have managed to bring the Fernando out. He is stepping on the cart, keeping them out. But there's the King Bomb, finds the stun, and Sin Cara melts instantly to the damage from the Bomb King. Things have looked so much better for Sanguine. They get the victory with the conversion, and Prolific, even on Ice Mines, just could not figure it out, Gore. And that's what we're talking about basically the whole time, is that it just really looked like Sanguine were in control on Ice Mines the whole time.
Yeah, that one, I mean, save for a couple of defenses, which are almost given to you on a map like Ice Mines, it just feels like things were never going to look good for Prolific there. A very stark contrast to the beginning of the day. I mean, Split Stone, very back and forth between the two. Stone Keep, very much Prolific's game to win. And now Bright Marsh even very close. This one felt disproportionately in favor of Sanguine, even though Prolific technically had that advantage being first pick and choosing where we go. So Sanguine being able to push us to a game number 5, I think impressive on their part. Even more impressive is how fast that Ice Mines was. I mean, I was kind of geared up for a lengthy one, and they didn't really have to deal with too much. I mean, their mid-fights were very clean and concise.
They were. The mid-fights were quick. Also, there wasn't a lot of overtime in those payload pushes and those cart pushes. It felt like either Prolific found a way to finally win right at the end, or like the last one, Sanguine just got the conversion basically right away. So a relatively quick map where those mid-fights were controlled. If you're Prolific, you got to figure something out in terms of getting some form of reliable damage for your backline, because the Kogan, the Kanessa, I mean, yeah, there were some kills coming through, but they really weren't working in the mid-fight for them at all, Gore. Since we saw those EV and Drox's bans start to come through, Prolific has seemed to struggle.
I think it's targeting the right things. What has been causing trouble for Sanguine? The flanks that they have trouble keeping up with. You ban those, then you're golden. It's very similar to what we've seen out of them in the past, and hey, if it works, it works. So things are going well for them. But it really is the clapback. I mean, you know, losers pick still, so Prolific get to choose another map. And I'm just wondering if they're going to be able to maybe pull a draft that's a little bit stronger than what they just had.
And their fate comes down to Fish Market. We're not here often, Gormizer, on Fish Market, but that will be deciding between Sanguine and Team Prolific. So if there's an area where Prolific, I think, are going to find some kind of difference maker, maybe this can be it. I think it feels so difficult to convert on this map. You're so out in the open for that final section of the push, and it feels like defenders can put so much damage out. Talk to us a little bit about how you expect Fish Market to go, kind of in general, and then we can assess these drafts.
So, Fish Market is just a cluster of anything and everything that you want, right? I mean, this is one of those maps, if Io were available, it would be rush to lock her in. Whoever gets her wins everything. But she's not, which changes the pace of, I think, pretty much everything. I mean, who's going to be the point tank who's going to stand there? I think Inara, even Barrick to an extent, is going to be kind of important here, although it might be a little more difficult to make him work out overall. Kanessa, Strix, already banned, makes sense. Victor, Cassie, then I start looking at Leon. Anything can go on Fish Market. I want to see if these teams can reach deeper into their pockets, though, to make it work. Now that some of the like kind of standard, this is going to work for everybody is gone, I'd like to see some of the weird get pulled out.
Hey, I mean, you don't have to tell Prolific. They've been doing a little weird at the pick band phase these last two maps. They go pretty standard here, though, with that Genos picked right at the beginning. And now Sanguine have the chance, I think, to take this Vivian, who has not been banned. It was the Kanessa, Corvus, the Victor, and the Strix that were banned out. Sanguine prioritized the Androxys, and again, you want to keep this out of Prolific's hands, so I don't blame them. And they're going to take the Leon. So it's not just the Vivian that's still open, but the Inara still open as well. Prolific might be able to come away with an excellent top 3 picks.
It's a weird case. I love the Leon here. And I think she might have, again, just a little leg up over the Vivian, but I don't even know how much I can hold that to be true, right? It's one of those things that it's in the right hands, which we've already seen Sanguine have, can take on a Vivian and a Khan pretty well. But Andro is going to be able to get to the backline. I think Vivian's DPS is going to make it hard for Sanguine to stand on the point, no matter who they draft here. So a good first 3 for Prolific, especially because Khan, this is one of the few maps in the game where no matter where you happen to be fighting, you have easy access to a kill field to just throw someone off the edge of the map. You're always set with your ultimate, and that's assuming you don't just let them get melted by your team. So a lot of wiggle room for this Khan to showcase and flex his prowess. But Sanguine, I mean, I'm looking at Andrew Leon. It feels really good. Atlas, maybe something like an Inara to round it out if Prolific don't pick it up to go for like a double tank. Could be pretty much all they need.
Yeah, I can't believe we're coming this far down and we're not seeing the Inara picked. It feels as though she's been an always present member of this cast of characters so far throughout this season of Paladins. But it's the Shaolin being picked up. We have seen this a bit more, right? We've seen it over in Brazil a little bit, as well as here in North America. Perhaps this could be the answer for Prolific, and I just have to assume here with this Inara in the last slot, maybe it's a little bit more hoping than assuming, but we'll get our chance to see.
I can get us out of here alive.
I like this. I think this is something, so, you know, Khan Ash double off-tank on Fish Market has been popular for a while now, and I think it has been very successful in the past. You put Shaolin, who I'm just now realizing's face resembles Nicolas Cage, and it's kind of bothering me a little bit. I think he's a good draft in this case as well. Good to deal with the Leon. He's pretty decent at dealing with Androxys as well. As far as putting damage down, I think Barrick might struggle a little bit, but overall, he is the best point tank that we have in the game. I think Ash, though, is going to give him a run for his money. I have to lean a little towards Prolific. I think their DPS output is going to be solid, but Sanguine definitely have a draft and a lot of champions that are not only kind to them, but have been kind to a lot of people in this meta here in Phase 2. And so I think they definitely deserve the benefit of the doubt. Plus, they're on a hot streak right now. I mean, 2 games in a row,
yeah.
You got to lean a little bit towards the red.
They are, and I know that it was Stone Keep that was dominant for Prolific earlier with the 4-0, but I don't know, I kind of want to give Sanguine credit for the 4-0 on Ice Mines too, because it never felt like it was much in any doubt. So now each team has had a dominant map, each team has won a contested map, and so Fish Market will be the decider, our 5th map. And onto this map, no Inara pick or ban. It's the Atlas Barrack over there for Sanguine. For Prolific, it's the Ashe and the Khan that will be trying to battle their way through and decide who comes out the winner of this set.
And so
there's a lot. It just feels like a lot of pressure, and Prolific have the more Fish Market-y style draft. But I think this actually comes down to Ball and Barry, what he can bring on this Genos, and aggression. That Luminary boost is going to be very solid in terms of damage, but if Andro can get back there consistently enough, Prolific just won't have the backline to hold up to Sanguine.
Prolific have those picks, though, that normally dominate the pick ban, so you got to show some Vivian Genos value as these fights are happening on the side. No one wants to drop down into the killing field that is the midpoint on this map. Poison gets the opening pick, make it an opening double as he takes care of Ratatouille and Penguin. And perhaps we're going to see Prolific's woes continue that they've struggled with the last 2 maps. Essentially a full wipe here for Sanguine as they move through with no casualties in this opening battle. And now Poison on an open map like this should have basically free reign to get them off their mounts. I mean, look how slowly Ratatouille is making his way to the point right now. It's going to be difficult for them to even find a touch.
Yeah, it feels like another case of map gone wrong here for Prolific, but a good fight in. They get rid of Gogurt, trade out Ratatouille, so it's a plus and minus. The 99% still leaning in favor of Sanguine, but Vivian damage, Yato has been huge so far this game, and you can't underestimate. I mean, just peeking his head for a second there, that Andro was almost gone.
Cool, is able to take care of Penguin. Sanguine step forward as soon as the Barrack is back, and they take the first mid-fight. Poison continues to be a nuisance, a menace. The Accursed Arb coming out as he tries to take care of Baller Steve very early on, or Ballin, whichever one of those ballers it was back there. He's looking for him as Ratatouille is isolated on the backside of the fight. Penguin actually able to get the kill to Poison and put a stop to the nuisance for now, and perhaps Team Prolific can hold on for a bit. It's Ballin Barry he was looking for there on the backside as Barry gets the return kill onto Gogurt, and Prolific finally get their feet underneath them here on Fish Market.
That's enough to be said, but 2 minutes still a long time on a map like Fish Market. Dome Shield's at 84%. Maldamba has that Dread Serpent. Soon enough, Leon's going to have Enlightenment Part 2, since Cool already used that earlier on. So that's going to be coming into the equation. A very easy trade out. 1,600 damage for you. Wide hitbox can be solid, but you got to look at the Shaolin to kill him.
Gets to the backline, takes care of the Domber early, and makes sure Cool falls as well. Penguin, who's kind of been the star player here for Prolific really all day, finally stepping up with a nice double. But it does get answered back by Sanguine. They get the kill on the Penguin and the Ratatouille, and the cart continues to roll. It's the Barrack up there with some backup coming from the Khan, but they got to go through this turret that is Vivian. Yato on the Vivian, as he should be able to put out plenty of damage. Has the Sentinels working for him here as well, but looks like it's rewound through time there by Sanguine as they continue to move this payload forward. It's right outside being converted.
Jeez, it's just so much damage dumped into the top of that hill in the blink of an eye. 2 quick kills as well, both onto the tanks. This is typically where it switches. I mean, prior to the tip of this hill, usually you think of Fish Market defender's advantage. It's a very long, weird push, so it ends up kind of hurting whoever's on offense. But once it gets into the fishbowl, it typically flops, and this time around, they were not letting that happen for Team Prolific. 30 seconds, just a little under, left for Sanguine. It's just how much they want to commit. I could very easily see Barrack dashing in, dropping a Dome Shield, and converting this. But then, next round, questioning whether or not it was worth the ult. That big...
Very little remaining now for Sanguine to push through. And poke low quick is trying to come around the corner, immediately gets clipped by by Ratatouille. Penguin low to the side as well, but Prolific at the successful defense. We don't even get an overtime there, and it's 1-1 on Fish Market. Things remain close, and the mid-fight wasn't particularly easy either, but maybe if Sanguine could keep chaining together these mid-fight wins, then this set could start to slowly go their way.
Little things are the difference makers. I mean, you know, Penguin holding on to one extra shot just to make sure that Cool didn't know where to throw his enlightenment when he was looking for the ult, right? Those little things are going to make the difference in this game. It's also little things like Gogurt using his ult to you know, make sure Vivian can't find an immense amounts of damage onto the payload, and then not being able to push it thereafter. So no exiles available. Sankara doesn't have the assert dominance either. Both of those very far from getting picked up. So it might come down to which tanks can recharge these ults faster, or for Quick, again, being someone who's more point tank oriented, has that dome shield, can get aggressive, and maybe cause some trouble for the backline, much like that.
Whoa. Early dome shield coming out, but Sanguine have already lost Gogurt. Penguin stepping up for them and finding an early kill. Yado and the rest of the boys have given up on that right side fight, at least for now. I assume an ultimate is worth capturing, and they do, but they lose another member. It's Cool that drops down this time, and all of the picks have gone the way of Prolific here so far. They're racking up percent as well, already up to 50% in that back pocket. As the Dread Serpent comes out as well, Poison finally able to find a kill going his way for Sanguine. On the back of the control, coming out from his support, but they have to unseat these tanks. They've chosen to plant themselves on the point. They take care of Ratatouille. Sankara gets the return kill onto Poison and still stands off to the side. No one is putting damage his way, and they've got 81% chilling for them. Maybe Prolific push back in and regain some control.
I mean, they've been able to, like you said, 81% hold on to a lot over here. And there's not a lot of ultimates for Sanguine available soon enough online, but I'm looking once again towards Vivian. Those Sentinels available up. That's a huge DPS spike, but oh yeah, Yado's not going to live to make him work.
Poison and Yada end up trading out. Penguin and Cool end up trading out. So really just the tanks and the healers still left standing. Looks like that favors Sanguine as they push forward to the objective, and Sankara cannot get there in time for a touch. That's 2 mid-fight wins in a row for Sanguine, and Prolific have got to figure something out because they didn't win any on ice, aren't winning any here on Fish Market. You are not a map without winning the mid-fight at some point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Prolific. I mean, it just feels like they have a lot of fight, but not a lot of fight back, right? If they come in on equal footing, they are definitely able to keep up, but the minute they lose a fight, it just can't get back in. They don't know how to re-engage. And I think that's partially just due to the nature of Vivi, someone who holds her ground very well, but doesn't take ground as easily. I think the same thing can be said for Shaolin versus someone like an Androxus, who is a spearhead to kind of lead the team into a battle and make that difference. Of course, as I'm saying all this, Sanguine is really good for them. They get to go back, spend some of the credits they just got, picked up point capture, so I'm actually sure they're happier coming into this because they're just going to be reinvigorated the next kind of half of this. And yeah, you're mattering just the blue items more specifically for Poison right now. He's looking to counter anyone and everyone. Illuminate's online there as well, just to make sure that the Shaolin can't get away.
Gonna be difficult for them to lock down Poison. I suppose that is the idea. I go to lock him down, but Penguin has him. HP group squad though, as he does end up getting pushed back. Damba low on the ult count now at this point. Team Prolific, despite having played this well, do see that the cart is starting to round this final. They've got a member up front who's low. They end up trading Gogurt out for Poison and Penguin. Furiata on side, but Quick gets the kill onto Penguin. Sanguine are making this offense look a little bit better. Penguin and Ratatouille end up falling out. Yado does come back out and knows he can try and establish some position. The tanks and Yado can't afford to poke his head out of there, and Sanguine have a bunch of mobility in their favor, a bunch of momentum. They've got all these ultimates in the back pocket. If they want this conversion, it's theirs. And look how far back Pro are. They can't even afford to come around the corner. Finally, they're able to push Ratatouille out with some control, but Sanguine get the conversion. They in the cart, and Prolific, who looked so strong on Splitstone, so strong on Stone Keep, are suddenly with their backs against the wall.
I could tell both teams Kind of expected that last a little bit longer. I mean, Quick drops down the Dome Shield.
Right.
Penguin also used the Desert Haze, Shadow, being able to drop is not easily done. I mean, yes, you're a little more happy dropping it just because of the fact that you're going to be able to Heat Haze, worry that you're going to be able to recharge it, but not coming into the round with it's not very comfortable for you. Same thing for the Barrack over there. And so with Heat Haze no longer, Penguin maybe going to have to be a little more careful. It also makes those Illuminates feel slightly easier because you don't have to worry about him aggressing in. But if you're Sanguine, you're more than happy. I mean, 3-1 lead, yeah, they get comeback mechanic, but Prolific really been able to pursue on the point collectively. So this is gonna for them first kill start thing.
So Gogurt and Sin Cara traded out, but boy, the double boxes. That's why Ratatouille's come to the back line. He knows he needs to take care of this. Andro is able to keep up with him, and Ratatouille puts him down. But back line, the percent built up all the while, and it ends up costing Penguin his life when he comes back into the fray. Quick is able to come back and find the retouch, but Ratatouille has him pinned. This con, everything Prolific in this for now, the fruits of his labor. Well, it's a 36% deficit. That's what he has earned. It should have been worse, in all honesty, but I doubt that's any consolation.
Well, the good news is as much like you can see now, watch their percentage, 23% already. They're going to match that 36, almost nothing. So they have, again, comeback mechanic in full effect, playing for them 2 points down. They're going to be able to grab way more than Sanguine way faster, but it's holding on to it that's the key. Just haven't seen these tanks do enough to make sure they can guarantee themselves a point capture. Without some of their DPS players, it might fall. Vivian's such a huge factor in making things. Melts Gogurt like it's nothing. Looks to try and melt.
Not be able to do that, but Prolific have control of them and regained it. They've taken it all the way to overtime. One touch has come through for Sanguine, and they still have Quick on this Barrack, on the point, holding strong. But how long can that last? Yato gets the last bit of damage on the Vivian to put Quick out of his miserable. Steve drops Ezlin, and this should be the mid-win you'd think for Prolific. But Sanguine have retaken control. They've got the percent building up in their favor. It's Gogurt that's out there, but he ends up melting pretty quickly. Poison. Now Sin Cara comes right back out. Poison falls as well, and it will eventually be the capture for Team Prolific, and now they get to start their very first offense of the map. But Sanguine, this is the benefit of being up 3-1. They've got so much time to come back and find another mid-win.
I'm honestly in this bench where, depending on where Prolific and what they can show here, I don't know that I trust them to really convert this that easily. I mean, 2 minutes and 4 seconds, they've already got it far, considering, but they're still in the danger territory of Fish Market as far as pushes go. And realistically, it's just, you get this point, that almost entirely feels like it's gifted by comeback mechanic more than it is earned by Prolific.
Right.
And whenever I see those, I start to hesitate when it comes down to these conversions, because if you're not winning the fight, it's so handily around the point that, you know, it's definitely something you won. Comeback mechanic just helped facilitate you getting faster. At least I start to wonder whether or not it matters if you get this, even if you're on equal. Sanguine might have the advantage there, so they're going to have to play carefully, and hopefully to their advantage for Prolific, because it is still the set that's on the line.
Rod field Prolific for so long. He could lose this instantly if another goes the way. Sanguine are able to find some decent picks. And as we like to say, those always favor the defense. On the back of that, Sanguine now getting pretty aggressive, step a little bit forward, all back towards mid, where a fight was happening earlier, and trying to control that space to set up an aggressive zone. 50-second Prolific, but remember, they likely don't want to use really any ultimates here to try and make this conversion happen, because they're going to need them for that 3-3 best case scenario next fight, more likely to.
It's that moment where you need everything in your arsenal in order to win. If you use everything in your arsenal, you're going to lose. Be very careful and kind of thin line. A couple of things that are easy to drop. Sentinels, which it looks like have already been here for the Vivian. You're just trying to charge that back up if you're Yato. Assert dominance, you don't want to use. Overpower, really don't want to use. The only one I think I'm okay throwing out at any given time is a Heat Haze. And if you're able to drop that down for a Shaolin and make a big double kill, then that's sick. Yeah, it's probably worth holding on to that one too, even if it means going in at a point deficit.
Now in overtime, very likely the conversion will come through as Poison gets locked down. But this is a couple kills in a row, so perhaps they can force the hand of Sanguine in a couple instances. They've got the barrack locked down, and that shall be it for Quick. It is a substantial, a huge difference if they come into this next mid-fight 3-3, but it just feels like it's such an uphill battle despite the fact that they are now pushing the payload downhill. Sanguine come around the corner of the Accursed Arm, the Dread Serpent, if they feel they need it, but you know they don't want to have to use them. Quick comes out, Ratatouille is down there in the killing field using the shield to try and stay alive. Not enough healing from Genos, and Ratatouille falls, get the defense, and just like that, they come into this next mid-fight in a great position.
No Enlightenment available for Cool, so even though it's not the damage immune ability that you still think one to go down, a little safer have, and he's and maybe one of the key factors right now for Sanguine having a bad couple of rounds here towards the end. A good start to pick up. Poison, once again, feels kind of like he's dragging body behind him. I mean, 16, 13, and 9. A lot of deaths, but the way of the Androxus. It feels like Sanguine have a lot that line up, and when they do, everything just flows perfectly. But right now, there are still some just small issues, and I think maybe it's coming down to draft more than it is play. Like, Leon used to be one of the mainstays, not just in Paladins, but specifically on console, so cool, you know he's comfortable with it. But she's kind of been missing from the meta lately for a reason. She's not necessarily one of those top picks people go for. And unfortunately, you know, Quick has not had terrible games, but Barrack right now is very hit or miss depending on who's playing him, and he's been riding that line right in the middle where it's neither hit nor miss, but no Barrack, now just getting his Dome Shield online. It's giving a lot of ground to Prolific that maybe they didn't need.
They lost the Barrack and the Atlas right behind it, and suddenly the percentage is starting to get a little bit out of control here. Of course, 65, 70% on board for Prolific, and Sanguine need to find a way to get their tanks back in and get a touch, but Quick dies again instantaneously. They take him out of there. Prolific are able to get the capture, so now we're in the 3-3 scenario. Instead of Prolific struggling in the mid-fight to not lose, now they've got a second chance at offense, and then of course they can come back for another mid-fight they'd love to take. As long as they have that con ultimate charge, they feel good about it, but that's only if they don't get the conversion here, as Penguin's starting to style a little bit, taking care of Gore. It's starting to get out of control.
If you're gonna hit them, you gotta hit them with everything, not just the spray. You gotta get the emote, to get the dance going.
That's right.
It's gotta come in full effect. If you're Prolific right now, your goal is to tilt Sanguine out of their minds and win this game. And honestly, you know, that was the opposite point fight that I was talking about from the last round, right? Where last round it feels like they just kind of won it by default. This time around, it feels like they won it because they just zoned out Sanguine so well. Yeah, they captured a little bit faster, but at the end of the day, they also just thrashed Sanguine's tanks like it meant nothing to them and were able to control the point a little bit better. Now, looking to lock it down. It's a good assert dominance. They're holding the hill. They still have a minute and a half to move it. I don't know if they need the time.
I don't know if they do either. It's a full team wipe for Team Prolific, and all of a sudden, instead of being eliminated here on game 5, on map 5, they have a chance for this final conversion. Gogurt trying to force his way through, but how can he step out? There's so much damage waiting the second that he pokes his head out, and all the while, the cart gets moved. They keep Yato healthy. Penguin takes care of Gogurt. Cool falls as well. They able to take care of Poison as well, and suddenly just the Barrack left all alone on the point. He drops the Dome Shield, takes care of Sin Cara as well, but the Barrack low. The cart continues to roll, and it's Prolific that come out on top over.
And this entire thing with a pretty good, kickoff. I watched Splitstone of like, okay, just we'll see what happens. And then they absolutely thrash on Stone Key.
Yeah.
So you expected a little bit more. And you know, Finch, I was saying, it kind of felt like Poison trying to drag everyone on Sanguine ahead. Penguin quite literally dragged everyone ahead. I mean, 24, 9, and 18. I can't glance over everybody else having, positive or even slash lines. Yato's 16 and 12. But such a stellar game on the Shaolin there that really picked up in the last 2 rounds. I mean, Sanguine, in comparison, 17,000 less damage, but nowhere near the same amount of kills there for Cool. I think we can really figure out that this Shaolin pick made the big difference for them.
Yeah, it was Penguin's efficiency, right? I mean, even if they were doing similar amounts of damage, they certainly weren't doing it at the same cost, right? They were trading a lot to make it happen, it felt like, and Penguin was able to keep himself alive in so many situations. I think that's why some of the spam mattered. He was letting them know, I'm the one getting the better of you here, Sanguine. Prolific are the ones that come out on top, 3-2. Not the only interesting match, though. Flashpoint and Project, certainly a good one that is going to be happening a little bit later on, so make sure you check those out as well. Now we have a chance to take a look at the standings. Sanguine, believe it or not, are down there at 1-2. Prolific improved to 2-1 near the top of the standings. And Gore, this feels a little bit topsy-turvy to me from what I knew of North America.
I was going to say, take your screenshots now. This is not the order of things that they, at least as they should be. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you see it. If you flipped it 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'd believe those were standings from Phase 1 just based on what we have seen in the past. So maybe a good week to try and turn it around. Maybe a good couple of weeks to try and turn it around right now for those teams that we know to be the best in North America. It's just whether or not they will actually grind up to the top the same way some of these other teams have, because they've obviously been practicing and been putting in a lot of work. Taking down Sanguine does not happen easily, so really good there for Prolific. Maybe a little bit more work for the rest of the team to make sure they get there.
And again, I want to give credit to Sanguine for dragging it to basically 0.7 map 5 without Wadu here, right? That was with Quick in there instead. So certainly an impressive performance by Sanguine. Couldn't quite get the win, but congrats you have to give over to Prolific. That is going to do it here for us today. We will be back with the broadcast tomorrow as well. So make sure to check that out. Gore and Kresik will be there for you. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate the production for making it happen. And we will see you here with Paladins that next time.